The Prince of Darkness himself, Tony Blair, responsible for 1 million dead, thousands of them British service personnel, in wars that he chose to fight and to join, which had nothing to do with us, which were entirely the wrong thing to do in response to international events, was there at the cenotaph with the little princelings and Princess Liz Truss. They were, I had almost forgotten Theresa May. She was there too. 6 British Prime Ministers, each of them responsible for the needless deaths of British service personnel, each of them supporting whatever the next war their successor is planning to join. Keir Starmer, the war criminal. Keir Starmer, the key participant in the genocide of the Palestinian people, in the mass murder of the Lebanese people. We now know 70% of the deaths in the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon are women and children. And guess what? The largest segment by age of those murdered in Gaza and in Lebanon are children between the ages of 5 and 9. Never mind working 9 till 5, 5 till 9 is the largest single group of people murdered, children murdered in the atrocities being committed by Sir Keir Starmer, the current British Prime Minister. But he will have had the wholehearted support of the waxen hypocrites standing all around him in Whitehall today. It is a perfectly proper ceremony. I myself have participated in it. It is perfectly proper to wear poppies in remembrance of those who fell in wars that had to be fought and wars that should never have been fought, the World Wars II and I respectively. It is entirely correct to remember the victims of conflict. But when the people leading the commemoration are people who are currently involved in mass murder across the globe and contemplating, joining, even fomenting still greater conflicts, the only word is hypocrites, in the words of my national poet, Robert Burns, in his ode on the occasion of a Thanksgiving. Ye hypocrites, are these your pranks, to murder men and gie God thanks? Halt, desist, and go nae further, God will no accept your thanks for murder. That's my words on the National Remembrance Day parade today. The conflicts, of course, continue to burn in the Middle East. The big conflict with the Islamic Republic of Iran hangs in the balance, and the massive conflict that these leaders themselves fomented as a matter of deliberate policy in the Ukraine, and 1 million Ukrainians have paid with their blood on the ground, is not just hanging in the balance, but precariously dangling by a thread. The battlefield successes of the Russian military, and perhaps above all, the incredible result of the American presidential election last Tuesday, which led to our biggest ever audience on the mother of all talk shows. My monologue was clipped by no less than Ricky Gervais and achieved 200,000 views on his platform, as well as millions on our own platform. That incredible victory by Donald Trump, the biggest landslide in American political history, when the gaslighters and professional liars of the mass media told you right up to the middle of the night that Kamala Harris had it in the bag, that the convicted felon, that the sex pest, that the rude vulgarian, the orange man, the straw-headed man, all the epithets of liberal journalists and politicians all came to naught. The American people rose up. They rose up almost as one. Donald Trump, as predicted, exclusively here. I've been checking. I'm the only person that you heard broadcasting the prediction that Trump would win the popular vote and a landslide victory in the Electoral College vote. You came to the right place. This is the College of Knowledge, because we here understand the mass of the people, whereas the other commentators and their political cohort listen only to those in the bubble. They confuse what they want to happen with an honest prediction of what is much more likely to happen. It was the working class of America what done it. The working class, the marginalized, the alienated, the despised. It was they who voted for the human Molotov cocktail that is Donald Trump. The outcome, of course, is far from guaranteed. The defeat of Kamala Harris and the oh-so-achingly progressive liberals of the Democratic Party was necessary, but it is not sufficient. What will be sufficient is if Donald Trump stays true to the election campaign that he ran in 2016 and again this week in 2024. If Donald Trump genuinely puts America first, he will make America great again. But if Donald Trump plucks the monsters of the deep swamp and puts them around his cabinet table once more, he will be diverted, perverted, subverted from his purpose. It's a big battle, and it's already underway. A huge lobby by the military-industrial complex and their intelligence auxiliaries was launched to put Mike Pompeo either at the Department of State or at the Department of Defense. The former Secretary of State, former head of the CIA, is a much thinner man these days, but he is fat with his reputation for killing, for subversion, for spying, even on the American people themselves. He openly admitted it. He said it in a speech. We lied, we stole, we cheated. He could have added, we planned to murder Julian Assange on the streets of London outside of Harrods. There was a big push for Mike Pompeo, but it failed. And Donald Trump last night, in an unprecedented statement on Twitter, effectively sacked Mike Pompeo before he had even got appointed to anything. Maybe there's a vacant ambassadorship in Ulaanbaatar. No, that's too dangerous. Somewhere much farther away. Ouagadougou would be good for Big Mike as the ambassador of the United States. Trump sacked him on Twitter before even appointing him to any job. Ditto Nikki Haley, the half-unhinged, crazed warmonger who turned on Trump, who ran against Trump, who insulted Trump in the most obscene terms, was nonetheless keen to get a job in his administration. Trump sacked her on Twitter also. But that doesn't mean the battle has won. It will only be won when Colonel Douglas Macgregor is the Secretary of Defense, when Tulsi Gabbard is the Secretary of State, when Robert F. Kennedy is in charge of gutting the three-letter agencies and the FDA as well, the Food and Drugs Administration, which has presided over the making of America as the sick man of the world, the most expensive healthcare in the world for the sickest population in the world. In Kennedy's own words, the most profitable business in America is a sick child, a child that will be dependent on Big Pharma for the rest of their life. When that happens, then I'll be confident that Donald Trump will make America great again. It will only be great again if it withdraws from the foreign wars, the foreign entanglements, the never-ending wars in which the United States has been involved for almost every year of its short existence as a state. The United States is falling apart, deeply riven, fatally undermined by lack of investment in the public realm, in the bridges, the roads, the railways, in the public education and public health systems. The people of America have had enough of sending tens, hundreds of billions of dollars to foreign potentates like Netanyahu, like the crook of Kiev, Volodymyr Zelensky. They've had enough. If they were asked by the IRS, door to door, give me your money for Zelensky, they'd slam the door shut on the tax inspector. That is for sure. The Americans have had enough of how things have been. And they're right so to be. And if Donald Trump responds to that, then he will be doing himself, historically, a very great favor. He will be doing the American public an even bigger favor, and he will be doing the world the biggest favor of all. As I said on Wednesday, we love you. We really, truly love you. We love your can-do spirit. We love your music. We love your movies. We love your sports. We love your scientific and other achievements. We love you. But we don't want to be you. We don't want to be ruled by you, and we sure ain't going to war over and over and over again at your behest. If Trump heeds all these calls, he will be a truly great president, and he will be able to name a successor with some degree of confidence that his advice will be heeded, especially if the successor has the same name as him. Yes, Donald Trump Jr., I'm speaking to you. But if he falters and fails, then his second term will be as blighted as his first term was, and by the same bad actors. The second great battle that was won this week in the battle for Donald Trump's ear is the great statement that he made about internet freedom, about freedom of speech. Again, he had no need to make it. He might well have counseled himself that no need to provoke the serpents of the deep, even before I have taken office. But he did it. He declared that America was going to be the free speech capital of the world, that he would never again tolerate big tech strangling the First Amendment. He would never again tolerate the American government dictating to big tech who it must falsely label, who it must close down, who it must algorithmically strangle. And I think if he remains true to that, that may be one of the biggest services of all that he can do humanity. We may well get to the stage, if Trump is telling the truth and follows through, that America will be the safest place for somebody like me to live and work. Imagine that. And the third of the great achievements of the last 3 days, 3 great achievements in 3 days, is the fact that he's already spoken with Zelensky. And Elon Musk was in on the call. That's intriguing. And one assumes that true to his election promises, he told Zelensky that the game is up. Now, the concomitant knock-on effect of that is that it leaves the European political leaders up the Rhine without a paddle. They have wrecked their own economies in pursuit of an American policy, and that American policy is about to make a 180-degree turn. Imagine the German government, which collapsed the next day after Trump's election, and will now face a general election which will change things forever in the Federal Republic of Germany. Little soldier Schurz and Anna Baerbock will be mere dust in the history of Germany in just a few months' time. Between the two of them, they can scarcely muster 25% of the German people's support. Who will govern in their stead will be itself determined by a great battle. But one thing is certain. It's all happening because of Germany's determination to ruin itself in support of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Volodymyr Zelensky. The Germans have committed a grave act of national self-harm, of political and economic suicide of their own country, right up to the point that they collaborated in the blowing up of their own gas pipeline to Russia. But the other European leaders are facing the same dilemma. They, politically, have gone so far out on a limb, anything for Zelensky and forever. They're now going to have to come to terms with the fact that the United States is about to withdraw its support for the war. So all their sanctions were for naught. Not as far as Russia was concerned, but very much less than naught as far as we ourselves were concerned. How do we get back from that? How do we undo all these sanctions on Russia? How do we unfreeze all of Russia's stolen assets? And will Russia be remotely interested in better relations with us when they can have the best of relations with the United States of America and cut out the middleman, cut out the satrap, the vassal that stands in between them? That leads me to the events in Amsterdam. I'm not going to really talk about Israel in this segment. I'm definitely not going to talk about football. The fact that Ajax thumped Tel Aviv Maccabi 5-0 in a European football championship is of no interest to me, except en passant to ask, how is it that Israel, a Middle Eastern country, is participating in the European football competitions? But leave that aside. What I'm going to talk about in regard to the two tips from Amsterdam is the gaslighting, the utter, outright falsification of news and truth that accompanied the ruckus, for that is what it was, at the Amsterdam game midweek. According to all of the Western media, according to all of the Western political leaders, in the case of Penny Wong in Australia and David Lammy in London, in exactly the same words. They tweeted, both of them, exactly the same words. For those of you who don't think there's a conspiracy going on, for those of you who don't think that these five eyes are all really one eye, and a partially blind one at that. For them, what happened in a football riot was a pogrom. It was the Holocaust. Again, it was Kristallnacht, whose commemoration had to be cancelled as a result of the riotous behavior of the worst football fans in the world. Don't believe me about that. Believe the Israeli press. Believe the supporters of all the other Israeli football clubs. Believe the chief of Amsterdam police, who told you in a press conference, which never made it to air, that the events in Amsterdam were entirely the responsibility of a group of Israeli fanatics, of the Likud fanatics of Maccabi, who came to Amsterdam to tear down Palestinian flags from people's homes, to sing about the fact that there were no schools in Gaza because all the children were already dead. That's what they were singing during a moment's silence for the victims of the flooding in Valencia. They carried, according to the police, planks of wood, staves of iron, and possibly knives, as they roamed around looking for citizens of the Netherlands a super friendly European country. There is no European country led by people more fanatically pro-Israel. And they were accompanied, in their own words, by Mossad agents who went with them to supervise their safety on their trip to Amsterdam. This is in their own words. They told us in the Israeli press that Mossad agents would be accompanying them. But they sure fooled the Western political class. They sure fooled the Western media, except they didn't fool them. And this is my essential point. Every journalist who regurgitated these lies about a pogrom knew that they were lying. They had read the Daily Mail of all places, a font of truth in this desert of Western media lying. The Daily Mail reported the truth. A 14-year-old boy broadcast the truth live from the streets of Amsterdam. The King of the Netherlands, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, chancelleries all over the Western world knew that they were lying, and it reminded me of that famous Groucho Marx skit in which Groucho's wife comes into the bedroom and catches him in bed with his secretary. He sits upright and proclaims that he's doing nothing wrong and asks her, "Who are you going to believe, me or the evidence of your own eyes?" That's what it was. Anyone who wanted to could see with their own eyes what happened in Amsterdam. But the gaslighters, the industrialized liars, the militarized mendacity regiments of correspondence told you that what you were seeing with your own eyes was not what you were seeing with your own eyes. And in the last hour, France has agreed that Israeli police can come to France and police the streets of France when Maccabi come to play in the same tournament in France in a few weeks' time. Their next scheduled game was to be in Istanbul. What could possibly go wrong? Singing about dead babies in Gaza in Istanbul. What could possibly have gone wrong? So UEFA have solved that problem. They have ordered the tie to be played in a neutral country. Israel, Netanyahu, has got all of these Western leaders and their media auxiliaries to dance to their tune. And you have to ask yourself, what is it about this small country of 8 million people that has got the Western political and media class so wrapped around their finger that even when they know that you'll know that they know that they're lying, they will continue to lie? I told you, it's going to be a bumpy night. Stay tuned. This is the mother of all talk shows.